Yes, my friends, welcome back. 4 big stories to break down today. Are we set to become Allianz Bridge? As we discuss new sponsorship for next season and beyond. To move on though, we talk Nicolas Jackson because today he has finalised his medical with us and he is set to sign. And some interesting developments around Moises Casado too. So my friends, tons of things to break down, discuss. Hope you guys enjoy. And I hope you guys are enjoying today. And you have to enjoy it for me because I'm still trapped indoors. Until my back is fully 110% good, I only know these 4 walls around me, which is a bit depressing. So you guys gotta live life for me, and you guys gotta hit that like button as well too. Before we move into anything, today's video is brought to you by OneFootball. OneFootball is the perfect companion app to have if you're a football nerd. It's the best way to get all the latest news, stats and information straight on your phone in an easy to find place. And for me, one feature I constantly use is the follow feature to stay up to date with more focused news around my football club. As we're seeing here, links with Melia of Leeds, I know I'm getting this guy's name wrong. Of course, Evening Standard have some big reports around the future of our midfield and our signings. Pulisic is attracting a ton of interest from Ligue 1, most importantly from Lyon, and of course Nkunku reveals his preferred position for next season. But that's just a small example of the things that OneFootball can provide. Pre-season is fast approaching, and OneFootball is going to be perfect to stay up to date to all things pre-season under Pochettino. So my friends, help yourselves out. You'll find a link below in the description to download OneFootball, and you'll find a link above in the QR code too. So right now, let's start things off with the latest story that was dropped by the Daily Mail, and it discusses potential sponsorships of the future, most notably a partnership with Allianz. Now, as we do know, Allianz offered us a 20 million a year offer due to the fact that we have no Champions League football. We had a mess of a season. Brand-wise, we ain't looking too sexy at this point in time. And obviously, the Premier League, they stopped our efforts to have Paramount Plus become the sponsors for us for next season. I don't understand why. It doesn't really make any sense in my opinion. I've been reading a lot behind it to try and figure out what the real reasons were. And they seem very up in the air and kind of nonsense, to be fair with you. So unfortunately, it does seem like Stake, obviously the crypto gambling company, could be the sponsor for one season due to the fact that they are happy to pay close to nearly 50 million euros. And considering the fact that we have no Champions League football, I don't necessarily agree with this move at all. But at the same time, we took lots of risks in the January window and last season, signing tons of players. It backfired. We didn't secure the objectives that we hoped to get. And it does mean that certain sacrifices have to be accepted, so we're still good in our accounting books. Because in football today, you have to be up with your accounting books. It's so important. But any potential deal with State, because it's not 100% finalized right now, will be temporary for one season at least. Then it gets you thinking, what do we do after that? And this is where this report involving Allianz and us is particularly interesting, but it does come at a certain price because, as we know, Allianz are, the sponsor names for Bayern Stadium, for Juventus Stadium, and of course, naturally, they would love to have a London club, a Premier League team, part of their brands. And as we all know, we're looking to try and finalize plans now to rebuild Stamford Bridge. Obviously, due to the history, this club has been existing for over 100 years. To just lose the name in Stamford Bridge, it wouldn't sit right with me. And it continues this trend of the modern day game where it's all about brands and PR and marketing, and it's all about the soul of the game, right? I'm seeing the concept kits for next season. I think the Allianz brand would look quite decent, to be fair with you. It's a shame that we couldn't find an agreement for these guys to even sponsor our sleeve for next season. But Allianz are still very interested in potentially striking a deal with us in the future, and we're still keeping the communication open at this point in time. So my friends, how do you feel about this story? Could you live with our new stadium being called something different? Obviously, we've seen similar things with Arsenal, with City, etc, etc. Does it mean anything anymore? Or do we have to keep some of our heritage and history and really just hold on to that? And sometimes money can't be the thing that overrides that. Obviously, where do you fall on that? Let us know below. But right now, my friends, let's discuss some very, very positive news today. Nicolas Jackson today has completed his medical, and now he is set to sign for us on a 5-year deal with an option to extend by a further year. Well, that's what we first thought, because it has been revealed today that Jackson is set to sign an 8-year deal, taking his contract length to 2031. Does this imply that the contract length cap now doesn't take place until the European window officially starts on the 1st of July? That is the only explanation behind this, because I don't think any of us expected us to be signing any more players on long-term deals. And now it gets you thinking, before this month ends, is there a possibility, once sales go through, that we can sign Casado and give him a similar contract length? I'm crossing my fingers, my guys. Now, Ornstein was the first guy to break these reports, and to give you guys some quick context, we are going to overpay his release clause up to the tune of 37 million euros to pay for the deal in installments. Personal terms have already been agreed upon. We don't have any figures right now, but one thing we do know is that Jackson was earning around 10k a week at Villarreal, so he is set to dramatically boost his wages now that he's signing for us. But it falls within our new transfer strategy and model where essentially we want to sell all the high earning wage players, and that's because we can find similar quality on the market for less wages per week. And I guess because a lot of these guys are young players that we're signing, having more incentivized contracts is going to be the key to really motivate them to fulfill their potential, train harder, and by the time maybe they're like in their peak years between like 25 to 29, maybe there's discussions to renew contracts and earn more money. Now, in my opinion, I feel like this is true business. I'm not going to stand here and gas it and be like, this guy is set to be, the best striker in the Premier League. I do feel like he has a lot of qualities and attributes that we have been missing out on at this football club for a very long time. And I want to discuss briefly some of the key aspects behind this guy's game that gives me a lot of confidence, a lot of hope. I think last season, our concerns were in 4K, right? Obviously, we didn't have a focal point up front. When we lost Breuer to an untimely injury, that came at the worst possible time. And we struggled to find anyone up front that could really fulfill that role properly to help out with the team. And for me, this is where Jackson solves a lot of problems we have at this point in time. I mean, this guy isn't like a one-dimensional forwards. If this was Football Manager, I'd say he's like a complete forward, because this guy is more than adequate, comfortable, and reliable in wide areas. And let's be serious, as football fans, how often do we see strikers, over the years, or strikers anywhere for any team, find positions in the left channel or the right channel? And it's one of the most frustrating things when a striker can't take on his man, when he can't beat the first man, when he has no end products at the end. But this is where Jackson is completely different to other strikers like that. And, it's an unfair comparison, but I'm looking at Mr. Stiff Timo Werner. If he had a bit more footwork to this guy's game, who knows what he's able to do right now. But this is an issue that Jackson does not have at all. In wide areas, the guy used to play as a winger, so that really helps him. And he has created a lot of reliable assists from crosses in wide areas, which is a great skill to have. One thing I like about this guy too is that he can fashion opportunities for himself. He can take on a man, create space for a shot, and hit it first time. And that tells me that he isn't one-dimensional. Like, he doesn't have to solely rely upon service to have any influence in the game. On top of that too, this guy has the upper body strength. He can hold off a defender. Guy has the intelligence to make runs in behind when he has to spearhead attacks, to disrupt opposition defensive lines. But at the same time, if you have to hit it long, if you have to play vertical, this guy can win a ball aerially. This guy can drop deeper, of course, to help your team relieve pressure in your own half. Like, how often can we get trapped in a half sometimes because a striker can't hold the ball because he's quite one-dimensional in his game? And other things I like. If the game is end-to-end, you can rely upon Jackson to be making them runs in behind, to be attacking the spaces, to be carrying the ball up. If the game's tight, he's got the footwork to link up with opponents. He can play in runners and behinds. If it's transition or end-to-end, then you have an outlet in your attack. For the price, for how quickly we've secured him, I'm optimistic. And I feel like in terms of the profile of striker that Pochettino likes to have, I think Jackson makes quite a bit of sense. So, my friends, how do you feel about this? Are you excited? Do you trust the club with this one? Let us know below. But welcome to Chelsea Football Club, Nicolas Jackson. Now, my friends, let's discuss some interesting developments involving Moises Casado. Now, as we know from my video yesterday, Man United are also interested in Casado. But before you guys start getting nervous and worried, we have put in groundwork since January. We put in groundwork forever. Winsley is obsessed with Casado and is making sure that he becomes the marquee midfield player that we sign this window. Casado has given verbal agreements that he wants to sign and play for us. But as we already know, we must wait for sales to go through first before we can start to make the official bid to sign him. But that doesn't mean that we aren't putting the groundworks right now. Instead of doing what Arsenal do, placing bids, getting rejected, placing more bids, getting rejected, and playing the long game, with Todd Bowley and the strategy at this football club now, we want to make sure that we use discussions effectively to guarantee that we find the right figures during these meetings to then know, okay, we've agreed upon this year, cool. Now we're going to place a bid that we know is not going to get rejected. Why? Because it saves a lot of time, and Casado is a very popular guy. Lots of clubs like him. We have to beat the competition. And I'm sorry, now Kante is gone, yeah? Casado, Enzo Fernandez is the only midfield now for our future for the next, hopefully, 10 years plus. And obviously he wants us, he wants London. He's set to dramatically boost his earnings too. Since signing that new contract extension in March, that raised his salary to around 60k a week. And I'm hearing, again, it could be absolutely wrong, but he might be earning close to 200k. But time will tell. Of course, we can't forget that we offer these young guys incentivized contracts. So don't hold me on to that. But in terms of a final fee, that's potentially looking like it's going to be around 70 million plus 10 million in add-ons. Now, Brighton valued this guy quite a lot, but he was promised that if he signed the extension in March, then he'd be allowed to leave. So they're not going to price him out because Brighton's whole model is about signing talents that no one else will buy and develop, and then flipping these guys for big money. So right now, my friends, I'm going to do something a bit different that I don't typically tend to do, because I feel like for FB Ref, having some context makes the stats make a lot more sense. But because we're all quite familiar with Casado and his game, for me, I think Casado has to be signed because this guy is the new Michael Essien. And I'm hoping that he becomes the defining Essien player at our club, because Essien, unfortunately, his career got played with injuries at the wrong time. And, if he never had them, I think this guy is seen as a legend at this football club, because back in the day, yeah, Essien was world class, and I think Casado has a lot of qualities in his game. Now, if you look at the FBref stats here, it doesn't necessarily paint much of an amazing picture. Of course, accurate passing, good tackling, interceptions, whatever. But let's look at things in greater detail, because for me, Casado has the potential in his game to play more box to box, because he can play in a 2, he can play in a 3. For the Ecuadorian national team, he does play a more advanced role too, and he has the qualities to develop his attacking game even more if he's signed for us. And he's not a player that's only just good defensively, and I want to tell you guys why using some of the stats. Now, for example, one thing I like about Casado is that he doesn't give away silly fouls in silly areas, even though last season he picked up 10 yellow cards. But I think sometimes at Brighton, you got to make those right tactical fouls at times, and sometimes his tackling can be a bit harder. But you know what? I want that aggression in my midfield, right? And most importantly, he got no red cards, which says something. But moving on, of course, the shooting aspect, he's not really getting in these areas at Brighton, so it doesn't make sense. But in terms of passing, yeah, the guy is very crisp and very accurate. His short passing, very good. His medium passing, he is comfortable switching the play, changing the direction of attacks when he has to. His medium passing is good. If he has to play a pass between the lines, if he has to play a through ball, he can do that. And of course, he has the ability to switch directions of attacks with long balls as well too. So the guy is quite composed. And as we're seeing here, passes into the final third. For a guy that performs a lot of defensive actions at Brighton, that's good. He's playing at least 1.23 passes a game as well too. And he's one of those guys where he is comfortable playing further up the field and playing when the game is congested and tight as well too. Now, obviously, stuff like this, not really that important to be fair with you, but as I was mentioning, the through balls, he can do that, and the stats actually reflect this. He comes in the 82nd percentile, which tells you that he isn't this one-dimensional type of player. But moving on, shot creating actions, of course, if you're a guy that has defensive responsibilities, you have to win the ball cleanly and then release it to an Enzo Fernandez or someone more creative, which he can do. He wins the key tackles in your half. He helps you win the midfield battle in the middle. And of course, he gives you that counter-pressing threat in the final third too. And I think these are very good stats. As we can see here, look, in the 92nd percentile, third dribblers tackled, which is amazing, and hopefully that makes us a bit safer when it comes to defending against counterattacks. And of course, this guy's reading of the game. He's in the right areas of the field. Look at the interceptions. Look at the tackling and interceptions combined. You know, tons of defensive actions. Superb in these areas. But this is what I mean about this guy having box-to-box threat, because he has carries. Like, he can, similar to Kante, of course, carry the ball up the field to help you kickstart that counter-attack, which is good. And in terms of other stats too, you know, the guy's not a lightweight when it comes to competing for aerial balls. 94th percentile for aerials won. That's a big thing. You know, the guy's like 5'11", good height. Of course, interceptions reading, phenomenal. And of course, no red cards and stuff like that. But as I'm saying, yeah, I feel like Casado has the potential to improve his attacking output even more, most notably the shooting department, because he does have clean shooting technique. He's got a good strike. Obviously, Essien had elite level shooting technique, so scored some of the best long shots I've ever seen as a Chelsea fan. I'm not saying Casado can do that. What I'm saying is there's more to Casado than just being a guy that only wins tackles. So, my friends, I feel very optimistic that we're set to sign him this window. Sales are coming through thick and fast. Let's continue to watch the space here. So my friends, I'm going to wrap things up, keep things moving. Thank you for watching. I'm going to do a live stream later today, so make sure you guys check the community tab. I'm thinking maybe around like 6 or 7. Let me guys know if you want one. And yeah, thanks for watching. I'm NiniFC.